and keeping our rates as low as possible. We have a lot to cover tonight, a lot of detailed information. We want to give you an overview of how the wastewater treatment facility works, the history, some upcoming capital and maintenance projects that we need to do, and how those will be funded. So yes, there will be increases, and yes, there will be special assessments, but the good news is those are half the amount of what they were a few years ago, thanks to the due diligence of the team and the panel that I have up here before me. They have spent the last few years going through the data, the operations, everything to whittle it down to the least amount possible for the residents and the customers. Hidden Springs Sewer Company, the board of Hidden Springs Town Association is the board for the Hidden Springs Sewer Company. HSTA staff provides project management and administrative support. The town council is up here behind me. We have John Ahrens, who's the president, Bradley Schaefer, vice president, Jeff Mousseau, who's our treasurer, Gary Stanislaw, who's our recording secretary, and Ryan Luke. I also have OMCS, we have Jay Irby and Ty Waterman. They have been service partners for 25 years and have been operating the sewage treatment plant for us on a daily basis. I have Abigail Germain. She's our legal counsel on all the matters that have to do with the sewer company. So she's looking at our governing documents and all of our agreements to make sure that all of us are served in the best interest. I have Mike Woodworth, our engineering manager. He's with Mountain Water Works, and they provide the engineering support for the sewer company. Sorry, my little thing's stuck. And Aaron's here, he snuck in. Aaron Lombardo is with North Star Reserves, and he did a reserve study that we commissioned summer of last year for the association as well as the sewer company. And there's all of us here, the customers, both in Hidden Springs and Cartwright Ranch. So with that, I am going to turn it over to John Ahrens. He's going to take you through the overview and the history of the wastewater treatment facility, and then we will go into a presentation of the upcoming projects.
Sorry guys, I'm going to walk around here. Hello, good evening. Pleasure to have you all. I think it's kind of interesting that everybody here consciously showed up to talk about poop. It's the only joke I got, sorry. As Lisa said, there's been quite a bit of effort to make sure that the resident-owned sewage treatment facility is operating as expected and doing it for the least cost possible. I think it's important as you're kind of seeing these numbers and you know, hearing all of this to recognize that effectively Hidden Springs Sewer Company operates as a nonprofit. So nobody walks out of here with any money. The money doesn't go to either one of the town associations, you know, either Cartwright Ranch or Hidden Springs. It is literally operated as a nonprofit. When you go and look through the budget, you'll see that effectively it balances itself. Now, agreed, monies do get put away in reserves, but that's effectively all of our money. And so the other thing to recognize here is that literally everybody that's sitting on the council, they're all residents here, right? So everybody lives here. We're in this with everybody, so just keep that in mind. So we're going to go over a few things about the sewer company and then a little bit of history because I think it is important. Just for fun, how many people here have lived here less than 2 years? Yeah. And so, right, I mean, Hidden Springs and Cartwright Ranch, it's a pretty interesting place, right? I mean, I think we probably operate a whole lot different than a lot of homeowners associations. I think I've challenged a lot of people with this over the years. I've lived here since '07, have been on the town council since 2015, and I've challenged somebody to find a more complicated place than this. When you add up everything that we do here, which we all live here for a reason because it's cool, right? When you add all that up, I bet you can't find a more complicated place. So I think that's good. I think it comes with challenges. I think you've got the right people looking after the place. And so I hope you'll go through tonight. You're going to hear some things that are going to probably challenge you and want you to have concern. I hope you consciously think about there's a lot of really smart people sitting up here really, truly looking after this. So I hope you keep that in mind. Let's see, I want to make sure I don't, so it does operate as a standalone business, right? So Hidden Springs Sewer Company is operated completely separately. I mean, even up to when we do town council meetings, we separate the business of the Hidden Springs Sewer Company from the Hidden Springs Town Association. So it does operate as a separate entity. If you haven't been to the plant or haven't seen it, you can certainly go on Upper Ridge. You can drive up to Upper Ridge and look down and see the facility, see the storage ponds in the facility. You'll see some pictures of it here tonight. And certainly if you wanted a tour, Jay and Ty are always looking to show people around. It's kind of an interesting place to go look. We are regulated by the Idaho Department of Environmental Quality, so IDEQ. You're going to see that referenced a number of times tonight. And the facility produces Class B reuse water. So, Jake, remind me, 5 classes? 5 classes, and effectively there's one better, right? So Class A would theoretically be a little bit better. It's a little bit better filtered. You're going to hear a whole lot of voodoo chemistry from some really, really smart guys up here later, so I'm not going to dive into any of that, but just understand it is very clean water, and of course it gets used to water the green spaces throughout Hidden Springs. So I think the important point from this slide to gather is really a testament to this team. So DEQ upped our permit time this year from a typical 5-year permit to a 10-year permit, and that's because the plant has been so well operated, literally get 0 violations. I think they just did one and basically got one little ticky-tack thing because they had to find something. So that's a testament to this team. The facility is operated fantastic. No big issues with it at all. And I think that's pretty important that DEQ recognizes that and has issued that 10-year permit. So that just happened, so it's now good until 2030. And that's another important part. You're going to hear a lot about this tonight. I'll just dive into it a little bit just so you kind of have an idea is, we don't just get to operate wildly, right? I mean, it is not only, the amount of measurement that happens in this facility by this team daily for, cleanliness, the amount of water that flows in all the different areas. I mean, all the different watering areas that you see, the different green spaces and the farm, all that. I mean, it's monitored and reported to DEQ very, very thoroughly. So this is just kind of a brief overview. I mean, it obviously, you're going to hear influent, right? So that's the water that we all put into the plant, right? Flows Cartwright Ranch in Hidden Springs, all flow down into the lift station. And if anybody wants to tour the lift station, Lisa gives tours at any time. It is literally the craziest place you've ever been in your entire life. So hits the lift station down over on 4th, and you're going to see a whole bunch of drawings and a lot more detail on that. But then it gets pumped up to the sewage treatment plant and goes through a number of storage ponds and then a treatment, gets chlorinated, and then gets sent back down literally to the lift station, and that's where the irrigation system flows out to the rest of Hidden Springs. Couple important points. The plant was designed for about 145 gallons per home per day. So that's we're a fixed plant, right? This is different than connecting to Boise sewer, right? So there's fixed amount of storage and there's fixed amount of capacity within the plant to actually process that water. We're hitting right now at about 155 gallons per home per day. So, design and actual are obviously a little bit different. I think it's also important to understand that the bulk of everything that we're presenting tonight was not designed or laid out by anybody sitting in this table, right? This was done a long time ago by the Hidden Springs developer. and other engineering firms. So think about that as you're going through this. So the storage and treatment, it's about a 45 million gallon set of storage ponds. So obviously, when we shut off irrigation in October, those ponds have to have enough capacity to take us all the way back through till April when we turn the irrigation on. So that's a pretty key point. So there's really kind of two things to think about here, right? Do we have enough storage, right? We got to be able to take showers and flush our toilets throughout the winter. And then do we have the ability to process all that water fast enough in the summertime, because obviously there's a lot going on there, and be able to irrigate, at the rate that's necessary to get that volume down when October hits and we shut the irrigation off, right? So we shut the irrigation off just like, for the community, just like we do for our houses. Let's see. I think that covers that. Whole bunch of acronyms. I think, like I said, some voodoo chemistry is going to be talked about tonight. Some numbers to keep in mind, or some things to keep in mind here that you're going to hear a lot about is total dissolved solids. You're going to hear certainly a bit about influent and the reuse water. So just all these presentations will be online, so you can kind of look back through it. So here's this might be a tiny bit on the tedious side, but there are some key points here to understand how all this happened, where a homeowners association, think about that for a second, a homeowners association owns a sewage treatment plant, owns and operates a sewage treatment plant. Not too many of those around. Can anybody think of one? I know you guys can, but stop, don't. There's just not that many. So that's this Hidden Springs Sewer Company was actually established by the developer of Hidden Springs back in '97. In '05, the developer agreed to provide wastewater treatment for the Grossman Company, which is the developer for Cartwright Ranch. So that agreement was made in '05. And then in '07, there was a sharing agreement between the two, so that's just some more contractual stuff. And here's a key point to kind of keep in mind here. So the Hidden Springs Sewer Company invested $1.3 million, this is back in '07, '08, invested $1.3 million in expanding the plant. So originally, the sewage treatment plant only had 3 storage ponds, and then two more ponds were added, one processing plant and one processing pond and one storage pond. And so at the time, Hidden Springs Sewer Company invested $1.3 million for that, and then the Cartwright Ranch developer, Grossman Properties, contributed $1.6 million to that expansion. A real key point to that is that $1.6 million is going back to the Grossman developer. As soon as somebody built a Cartwright Ranch house, when a builder built that and paid that money literally went right back to Grossman Properties. It's a fairly key point. That's a lot of money. Typically, and certainly when the Hidden Springs homes were built, those connection fees went to the sewer company and stayed with the sewer company. So it's a key point to think about. I think I left one out there. Oh yeah, so in '09, there were enough homes built in Hidden Springs to actually start running water through the sewage treatment plant. So up until then, the irrigation in Hidden Springs was done with Suez water, right? So there's literally a valve down at the lift station where you can get water for the irrigation system from Suez or from the sewage treatment plant. And in '09, that's when that got turned on. So that's in '16 when they started building homes in Cartwright. That's when that's the point I was trying to make, that $22.50 that gets paid by the builder for homes in Cartwright Ranch, literally that money flows right through and back to the Grossman Company. In '18, we started really looking hard at the operations of the plant and did a bathymetric study on the ponds to find out how much sludge was building up there, right? So literally, kind of, you can think about it like a sonar look in the ponds to find out how much sludge was there. 7 feet? Is that kind of the number? Yeah. So think about 7 feet of sludge at the bottom. So it has to get pumped out and cleaned, and yeah, you're gonna see some pictures tonight, fair warning. That happened throughout 2018 and 2019 when the sludge removal happened there. So that's kind of just some operational stuff. The permit was upgraded again in 2020. In 2021, we brought Abigail on and her firm to do a legal audit of all the governing documents for the sewage treatment plant and the relationship between Hidden Springs Sewer Company and Grossman Properties and the developer there. And then we really started looking at, okay, what are we gonna need to do here to get the plant up and running, so able to process the amount of water that's coming now from, another third in homes, maybe even a little bit more than that. And then also making sure we're able to store all that so we can all take a shower over the wintertime, right? And then we're collaborating with Grossman through all of this to make sure all of that goes well from a contractual perspective and getting all that under control. There's just contractual operational stuff that is getting addressed now. So I think it is important to understand, here's just some hard facts here, that the developer of Hidden Springs elected to build this sewage treatment plant instead of connecting to Boise sewer, right? So that was a conscious decision made by them. And I'll be the first to admit, this group's probably tired of hearing me say it, but was that a great decision? I'm not sure. But it certainly has some cool stuff that goes along with it, right? We definitely have the ability to control our sewer fees. It is a boutique sewage treatment plant, so that comes with some higher operational costs. We don't get to amortize those costs over, a larger community. But we also do have some pretty cool sustainability factors that come from this, right? Because we get to reuse the water and use that to irrigate green spaces, and we've got a pretty substantial farm commitment in the governing documents of Hidden Springs that we're able to water. And at the end of the day, the costs for operating the sewage treatment plant are almost, it's hard to exactly put a number on it because you can't exactly tell how much water it would use, but it's close enough to a more profitable thing to do for us as residents, because we'd have to buy that water from Suez, right, to irrigate those green spaces. And so effectively, we don't have that water bill because we get the water from the sewage treatment facility. So is it cheaper, plus or minus a little bit on either side of it, but it's certainly not more expensive. So good stuff there. Let's see, what else is important to go through on this? So the Hidden Springs Town Association did purchase the sewage treatment plant from the developer of Hidden Springs. So that was obviously a conscious decision made by the town councils back in, what year was that, Lisa, please? Say again? The year that the Hidden Springs Town Association? In 2009, thank you. And so, of course, all of that, all those contractual obligations are what we're working through today. When Cartwright Ranch was starting to develop in 2016, that's when we really started looking at, obviously things were running fine, had plenty of storage, plenty of processing capability when it was just the Hidden Springs residents. But when those homes started being built, it was obviously the right time to dive into this deeper and make sure that the facility was prepared to manage all of the homes. Here's an eye chart. This kind of points out, and it would be real interesting to see the previous 7 or so years. Yep, sorry about that. The 7 or so years before, you can look down at the bottom row there where it's the annual increase. So before that, it was 0%, right? The plant was operating, it was all brand new stuff. So things, there were very small increases. And then you can see over the years as we manage the budget, and like I said, it effectively gets managed as a nonprofit. those, when that all pencils out, that's where those increases came from. And we certainly did plan and started looking at after we recognized what it cost, what the true cost for just literally sludge removal. That was a significant dollar amount. $400K, Lisa? $365,000 to get rid of that sludge. So it's not a small bill, right? So you got to have that money laying around. It's not like they're going to take a check, right? So so that's where you see that. We're going to talk about all the increases, and I know you didn't come here to talk about poop. You came here to talk about money. We get it, and that certainly isn't lost on this group right here. There isn't a single person at that table that hasn't spent a whole bunch of time trying to keep that $64 at 64, not at 120. So we'll certainly talk about the dollars here, but there's a recognition of what the dollars have been over the years. We've kind of beat that top point up a bit. Again, the whole purpose of this is to educate everybody to learn about what the sewage treatment plant is and what we're doing. So that's why we're here tonight. We made a very conscious decision to lay all this out. There's literally no reason to pull any punches or not talk about anything. We think the story is a good story, albeit that it comes with rate increases, but it's a good story that's been very methodically thought out, both from a legal perspective, an engineering perspective, an operations perspective, and the people that actually have to come back to everybody and say, here's what the rates are, as well as the group of people that are sitting in the office that have to listen to people come in and be mad about it. So there's certainly been a big effort here. So I'm going to turn this over to Mike. Mike from Mountain Waterworks is going to talk about the facility expansion and go through the details on that. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Well, I'll take the clicker. All right, thanks. Okay. So my name's Mike Woodworth with Mountain Waterworks, and as Lisa and John said, we've been working with the Hidden Springs community here for about 4 or 5 years. We are a water and wastewater engineering group, so that's what we specialize in. That's all that we do is water and wastewater. And so as we were approached by Hidden Springs several years ago, the first thing that we took a look at was, as we're bringing more houses on from Cartwright Ranch, do we have the capability and enough capacity to deal with that? And so the very first thing that we did was take a look at the capacity of the plant and the capacity of the system. And as John mentioned, we have a couple different capacities that we have to take a look at there. The first one is a storage capacity. In other words, do we have enough storage available to store all of the wastewater that's coming in over the winter? Second is a treatment capacity. So once we take all that treated storage, or all that storage, and then treat that and apply it out for irrigation, we have to make sure that we have enough capacity to treat it and get it all out during the irrigation season. And then the third component of that is do we have enough land and a robust enough irrigation system to be able to take all that water that we're treating and get that out and applied among the areas in the community. And so that's really the gist of what we're looking at here from a water balance standpoint. And then the other item, as John mentioned, is the system is governed by IDEQ. And so we have a permit that's issued by IDEQ. Previously it was issued by EPA, but now it's a IDEQ permit, and so we have to maintain compliance with that permit. Let's see here. Okay, there we go. The button that didn't have a label on it. So I'm just going to give everybody kind of a quick overview of the treatment process that we've got in the system. So as John mentioned, we have the collection system that goes down to the lift station that's over here behind the school on Dry Creek Road. From that, we pump up, and we have 3 treatment lagoons and 2 storage lagoons at the system. And we have, again, full winter storage. So anything that comes in between November 1 and April 1, stays up there at the treatment plant, and we don't have the ability to discharge it or get it off site. So we have to accommodate winter storage for the full amount that's coming in. And again, our treatment is sand filtration and chlorination. So we filter, and then we have a Class B reuse system. So we filter, chlorinate, and then put that out for irrigation in the community. Just kind of a quick overview here, our treatment plant facilities. Again, we have three treatment lagoons, which is Cell 1, 1A, and Cell 2. The treatment plant there is in the middle. Our large storage lagoons are Cell 3 and 3A, and we have an irrigation storage tank that we use once the water's filtered in the plant, then pumped into that irrigation storage tank, and then used from there to irrigate during the irrigation season. Here's kind of a very complicated schematic here, and I won't really get into this in too much detail, but basically we've got on the left side here the lift station that's coming in. Our influent then goes to our three treatment lagoons, and then it's those are aerated lagoons with blowers. From that point, then we go into the storage lagoons, which is either Cell 3 or 3A. During the irrigation season, then that's run from those storage lagoons through the sand filters, chlorinated, and then we do testing on it to make sure that it meets the water quality requirements. If it does, then of course it goes to the irrigation water storage tank and out to the irrigation system. If for whatever reason we do not meet the water quality requirements, then that's run back through the system. So anything that Jay and Ty are working on up there, there's a lot of testing that goes into that and has to make sure that it meets the water quality requirements before we put that out to the irrigation system. One of the things we looked at here is wastewater flows and projections. And we see here the year, basically number of Hidden Springs connections, Cartwright Ranch connections, and our average daily flow. Our average daily flow per connection, like John said, got up to about 155 gallons per day per connection. In 2020. Jay and his team identified some leaks in the collection system and fixed those leaks, so we were able to get that back down. But you can see that on a per connection basis, we're somewhere between 140 and 155 on average daily flow per connection. And so that's kind of an important number to keep in mind. And 155 is really one of the numbers that we're taking a look at, because we can't control that every year. We get some storm events that have runoff and increase the flow into the collection system, and then we have to treat that. And of course, we have leaks in the collection system and things like that. So what we're averaging, and from a design standpoint, is you're definitely looking at that about 155 gallons per day per connection. So as from a water balance standpoint, again, we have no discharge, so we have to treat and apply and store all the water that we get every year. Our treatment units and our storage must be in balance with the inflow, everything that's coming in, and then of course the irrigation, everything that's going out. And our irrigation season is from April 1 to October 31, which is governed by the permit. That's our permitted irrigation season. And so some critical items here is again, we have to have sufficient storage to store all the influent that's coming in from November 1 to March 31. And then we have to have sufficient treatment capacity to apply the irrigation at the peak irrigation demand from July and August. And then we have to have sufficient irrigation areas to apply water. So that's really kind of, again, our three-pronged approach of making sure we have capacity. One is the storage, one is the treatment capacity, and then the third, of course, is the irrigation capacity. So if we look at our storage, and we look at our average daily flow and our non-growing season storage, that winter storage in 2021, it was about 25 million gallons. At build-out, we anticipate, when all the homes are occupied, we anticipate that to be about 39 million gallons, and our maximum storage capacity is 45 million gallons. And the one thing that I would say there, that 45 million gallons, is you kind of have to put an asterisk on there, because those storage lagoons can't be drained all the way down to the complete bottom. So the minimum that we've been able to get those down in the end of the irrigation season is about 3 to well, probably closer to 5 million gallons. And so we have to anticipate that we have about 5 million gallons carryover every year. So here's kind of what that graph would look like on an annual basis. Our wastewater inflow is the blue bars there, and from a monthly basis, that's fairly flat, pretty consistent. We get some big storms, things like that. That we might get some peaks in some months. Our storage volume is the gray, and you see there that right at the end of the irrigation season, or right at the end of the winter, or the non-irrigation season, like where we are right now, our storage is at a max. And then once we start irrigating, our orange or rust-colored line there, we start getting some outflow, and our outflow is greater than the inflow, so our storage goes down. And so the key here is we have to, again, have enough storage to be able to make sure that that gray line doesn't go over the capacity there at the top, and we have to have enough treatment to be able to get the water out during July and August during the maximum irrigation season. And then we have to have enough land to be able to apply that water. And one of the things that's critical to realize is with our reuse permit, if we miss a July, say our plant is down for 2 weeks in July, we can't make that up and still be in compliance with the permit by irrigating in September later. So what we have is a situation where we have to apply water it's at the rate that's referred to, it's substantially at the irrigation water requirement. So in other words, if we have a big turf area that's saturated and we've just been watering the heck out of it, we don't have the ability to go in and just dump more and more and more water on that. We would be violating our permit. So that's why you see here that the rust-colored is really ramping up and peaking, because we're applying at basically what the vegetation needs without having excessive infiltration or runoff. So our treatment capacity, we currently have, the treatment is 3 sand filter bays. The design capacity of each of those bays, which would have been under ideal conditions, is about 200 gallons per minute per bay. So our observed peak capacity, which again in the real world we don't ever get ideal conditions, we have our peak capacity that we've observed is about 160 to 180 gallons per minute per bay. And that's substantially increased in the last 18 months. We did a sand filter, or a sand replacement in the filters, Jay, about 18 months ago? And so prior to that sand replacement, we were seeing those filter bays of about 130 to 140 gallons a minute max. So we got substantial more capacity out of those. And again, our filtration capacity has to meet our irrigation demand. So once we get to max build out in July, we expect we have to treat and run through those sand filters about 20 million gallons in July. Which is our average daily flow for our max month is about 640,000 gallons per day. That's during our July, that's our irrigation flow. And that means our required filter capacity has to be about 465 gallons a minute. And that's, really kind of the bare minimum to be able to produce enough irrigation water to get our storage down and to be able to get that water out. So we have to have those filters really humming along and producing between 450 and 470 gallons a minute in the summer. But again, with irrigation, we can't just apply on a monthly average. There's certain things that we have to do. We get a rainy day, we get an issue with the irrigation pump, and we have to delay a day. So we have to have some flexibility. We can't just come out and say, hey, we're going to put 640,000 gallons out every single day. It just doesn't work like that. Oops. That's the wrong button. And so our treatment, and again, we're governed by DEQ, so we have these Idaho rules for wastewater treatment, and one of these is IDAPA. So the Idaho rules for wastewater treatment is IDAPA 580116. And the section in that says basically that municipal wastewater plants have to have some redundancy. In other words, we have to be able to treat and meet our treatment objectives and our treatment goals with any one component out of service. And so what that's saying is we have to meet peak flows with one component or process out of service. And so in this case, we look at our filter capacity and we say, okay, we've got 3 filters, and if we take one of those out of service, now we're down to 2. We can do about 320 to 360 gallons a minute, which, of course, then that doesn't really get us, and we're not meeting that redundancy. So, kind of the nightmare scenarios, we have a problem with one of our sand filter units in July. We've got peak build out. We've got all this water that we've got to get out. And then that's down, and it's down for 6 weeks while we're waiting on repair parts or whatever else. And at that point, then we've really kind of created a big problem for ourselves because we've missed the opportunity in the window to get all the water out. We're going to have carryover into the winter, and we've created a huge headache, and we don't know what we're going to do about it. So really what we're talking about here is needing to increase that filtration capacity to get up to that maximum demand of 465 gallons a minute. And that's assuming that those run 23 hours a day. So, really we're running those pretty much full out. Again, kind of the water balance on the irrigation. The one component here that we haven't talked about yet is if we've got, in July, we got to get 20 million gallons of water out and applied to the irrigation areas. We got to have enough land to apply that to. And so we go through and look at the irrigation efficiency, the average evapotranspiration, depending on what crops we're growing. In this case, it's mostly turf, although we do have some alfalfa and some other crops. And we look at that and say, okay, well, we need about 72.5 acres of irrigated area to be able to apply that 20 million gallons in July, and also to be able to apply about 94 million gallons a year. So what that says is, as we're continuing to grow in the community, we need about 8 to 10 more acres of irrigated area. Otherwise, we're going to be running out of places to put all the water that we're creating. And so kind of a summary in the water balance, our maximum non-irrigation season storage, really the maximum that we're looking at there is 40 million gallons. Those lagoons can hold 45 million gallons, but we can't drain them all the way down. So we're at 40 million gallons is what we can store. And our required, and our design flow is about 39 million gallons. So we want to really keep a good eye on that, make sure that we don't have excessive carryover. Otherwise, we're going to create a problem moving into the next year. Our annual wastewater production at build-out is estimated to be about 94 million gallons. We need 72.5 acres of land to apply that 94 million gallons. And again, we're a little bit short of that, so we need about another 8 to 10 acres, depending on what we grow in those 8 to 10 acres. And so kind of to summarize the deficiencies, we really kind of talked about the capacity so far, but we do have some deficiencies here from blower capacity. We don't meet the redundancy for the blowers, and we use those blowers as part of the treatment process in those treatment lagoons. Our sand filter capacity, again, kind of talked about that. Current capacity isn't sufficient to meet the wastewater rules and to get our treatment that we need at build-out in the peak of the irrigation season. And our irrigation area, of course, then we do need to expand the irrigation area to get more areas to place that water. So our recommendations were to install 2 new additional blowers and relocate one of the blowers to accommodate some of the things that we're talking about doing in the plant. Our sand filtration would be to install an additional sand filtration bay that would get us to where we can meet that treatment demand and be consistent with the rules for redundancy, and again, expand the irrigation system. The one thing that we didn't really talk about here, but is going to be critical, is a continued aggressive management of what we refer to as I&I. That's infiltration and inflow. And so that's stuff that comes into your sewer collection system that's not wastewater. So groundwater coming in through leaks in the sewer pipes. It's stormwater running off and running into manholes and things like that. And so when we have a limitation on how much we can store, just a small leak can, over the year of groundwater going up into those storage lagoons, can be a huge impact. So Jay and Ty were charged with spearheading, kind of doing some camera inspection work on some of the collection systems, and very proactively. And what we saw is we found, Jay, 3 pretty sizable. I mean, and when you say sizable, you're talking 5 to 10 gallons a minute.
yeah, 5 gallons per minute turns into approximately 2.8 million gallons of storage that gets eaten up in the storage lagoons up there. And so, yeah, we found 3 major leaks in some of the low-lying manholes down here. Obviously, there's a high water table in this area, so some of the manholes tend to get leaks. We call that inflow. And, yeah, we had several that were, there was one right out here outside of the school that was like 15 gallons per minute. So you can imagine that's an extra 6 million, 7 million gallons of water that got into the system that we didn't need to treat and took up valuable capacity throughout the years. So that was fixed. And the other 2 were a couple of about 5 gallon per minute leaks that were just going constantly. So yeah, the inflow and infiltration is a massive, massive issue in a sewer treatment facility where you end up losing a lot of treatment and storage capacity that then has to be put out also onto the land in the irrigation season.
So yeah, and that's kind of one of the things as we were going through this, we saw that our actual flows per connection in 2021 dipped a little bit compared to 2020, and we attributed that primarily to the repair work that was done, that Jay and Ty helped identify those leaks, and those were repaired. So, you know, one of the things, I guess, as we think about a wastewater system and a collection system is you can't really control the leaks. You know they're going to happen. You just have to be proactive and deal with them. And that's why we can't, you know, always say, oh, hey, we're going to put an exact number and be 142 gallons per connection per day, because that's going to vary a little bit. I mean, we're going to have, as the collection system ages, you're going to have some leaks, and we'll, you know, proactively repair those, but we have to be able to accommodate that, because we have to have a margin of error and a factor of safety, because really what we, if you go back to the plant and how the plant is set up, is we don't have surface water discharge, and we don't have anything else to do with that water other than store it in the winter and get it out as irrigation water in the summer. So really, in this case, it's a fairly unique system that the water balance is really driving really everything that we do up at the plant. And that's the end of what I had, Lisa.
We're going to do questions at the end. Is that all right?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. Only wastewater. Yep.
Well, yeah, that's not exactly true. So we definitely didn't want to do I'll answer that one, and then let's save questions till the end. So, yeah, it's a valid question, but it's got a multitude of answers. The first one is, oh yeah, the question was, is effectively any of this reuse water being used to irrigate green spaces in Cartwright Ranch? And the answer to that is no. It could. Today, Grossman has decided not to take that water. So let's back up a little bit, and can I have 1 minute to explain the whole tree? And so, and we could do 30 minutes on this, and Hidden Springs residents that have heard me tell this story before, like, God, I hope he doesn't tell it again. So in '09, when the irrigation plant got turned on, shortly after that, the trees that are along Hidden Springs Drive started to look really, really bad. And fast forward to 2016, there were a good 20% of them that had already died, and we took it on to get that fixed, to understand what it was and to get it fixed. So we changed we did plenty of, we spent a year testing the water, testing the ground, all of that, and determined that it was the salt content in the water that was killing those maple trees. And so an important point here to understand, or just I'll sidebar a little bit, Cartwright Ranch the CCNRs today forbid regenerative soft water systems. So if anybody here has one, or you know people that do, you're violating your CCNRs, and it will catch up to you. So be conscious of that. Today, that will at some point hit Hidden Springs residents as well. But at that time, we determined that's what it was, and we put it out to stop installing regenerative soft water systems and all of that. So when all of that happened, I know where you're going with all that. When all of that happened was right about the time Grossman was starting to put the infrastructure in place for Cartwright Ranch, and they decided not to do that. Now, there is a connection point. So when we did all of the changes to Suez, we did leave a connection point that at some point when the Cartwright Ranch homeowners take over and have their own town council, that is a conversation that could be had. And effectively that would save money for Cartwright Ranch. So there's a whole lot of other things to discuss there, but that discussion could happen. But you're correct. Today, Cartwright Ranch does not use the treated water for irrigation. Sorry, that was more than a minute, Lisa.
Okay, for new residents, I know Hidden Springs residents know about the sludge removal that we did on cell 1, 1A, and 2 in 2019, but we need to do cell 3 in 2023. So I just wanted to explain what sludge removal is. So there's solids that accumulate at the bottom of the lagoons. Whoops, wrong way. And that needs to be pumped out and dewatered. The dry sludge gets hauled off to the landfill, and then the water is put back into the lagoon. And there was, Merrill Brothers came out and did that for us. And you can see they put it through the belt presses. We removed 437,960 pounds of sludge from those 3 lagoons. 2,000 pounds of that were things that couldn't dissolve. Things you're not supposed to put down the drain. So here you can see the trucks, the belts, and the product as it leaves and goes off into the dump truck for the landfill. This is the product that was removed that couldn't go through the belt sanders, so it had to be hauled off another way. So that's all those things, again, that people are putting down their drains that they shouldn't be. So this, you can see, we did cell 1, 1A, and 2, and 3 that we need to do is the equivalent size of those. So we're looking at another $380,000, $95,000 expense. The cells 1, 1A, and 2 are planned again for in 2029, and those are already accounted for in the reserve study that we had done and the reserves that we are now putting away. Oops. Okay, now I'm going to turn it over to Jeff.
It's the worn out button that goes forward. I got that. Hi, everybody. My name is Jeff Musso. I'm a resident of Hidden Springs. My wife and I have lived here about 7 years, and I've been on the board in one capacity or another for the last 3 years. And so I have the dubious distinction tonight to follow the sludge presentation with a discussion about kind of money and funding and kind of what everything you've heard tonight on some of the problems that we've had and some of the expansion needs, how does that equate to specifically in dollars? And so I'm going to try to go through that and help everybody understand that. What I would like to start with, so we heard a great presentation from Mike kind of about the needs of the facility and the capacities and things like that. I want to talk a little bit more about money, and I want to start with the capital reserve study that was done in 2021 that the board commissioned. So what the reserve study really looked at was all of it's kind of to help you understand, it's kind of like if you're a private resident, so I'll put myself in my shoes and your shoes also. You've got a roof that has a definite life that at some point in time is going to need replaced. It's a big dollar thing. You've got a car, the same thing. You know, it's good for 10 or 20 years, and then it's going to need replaced. And you've got a television, and you've got all these different things. Well, figuring out how much money you're going to need at any given point in time so you'll have enough money to do those repairs or the replacements is the same thing that we looked at on the sewer plant. So we looked at all of the components, all of the pieces and parts, because we need to keep this operating basically in an indeterminate amount of time right now. So as things break, as things need replaced, as things need cleaned out and mucked out, we need to have the money that can do that. Unfortunately, the sewer company, with a few exceptions, we can't go get a loan for each and everything that we need to do. So if we've got a $5,000 pump or blower that breaks, rushing out to get a loan isn't a way to do it. We need the reserves in place so that we can go buy it. So as we stacked up, I don't know, Aaron's here, 100 or so different things with different lifetimes, we start to figure out how much money you need in any given year to replace the things that are expected to need to be replaced or rehabilitated in any given year. So really that is what we looked at. We looked at major components, so we established a threshold of $5,000. So if it's under $5,000, it's basically coming out of our operations and maintenance fund, which is just a yearly fund that's set up for paying for the operations of the plant. Over $5,000 is going to go into basically the reserve study and be funded through a reserve account that'll be set up based upon that study. North Star Reserves did the study. We did a study both on Hidden Springs Town Association assets, but independently we did the study on the Hidden Springs Sewer Company. So that's the one we're really talking about tonight. We used a cash flow method, so we tried to keep a balance, so what was coming in and what was going out was about the same, so you didn't have a big increase in rates one year and decreased rates in one year. You tried to keep it even. And then up until this point, and we really got, I think the board got a little nervous in 2019 when we had to do all the muck-outs. And Lisa showed you the wonderful pictures of that, but that was a $300,000 plus piece of work that was done that did come out of reserves that were established at the time. Took the reserves from roughly $800 and some thousand dollars down to $500 and some thousand dollars, and they've been decreasing slightly. John showed you a timeline of the age of the facility. So when the facility's new, you know what? It operates pretty well. We're operating under capacity because homes are being built. Things are going pretty well. But as that plant starts to age, equipment starts to fail, things start to wear out, ponds start to fill up, so you can see the need for the repairs, the replacements, and the work on that going up. And so that's exactly what we saw. And as the board, we said, more than just kind of guessing on rates and trying to keep that even, let's do the study by North Star, who's good at looking at these types of things, and really get a financial analysis in place on how much money that we need every year for that reserve fund and how we're going to get that money through rates. So that's what we walked through on that. So in doing this, we looked at inflation rate because we went out 20 plus years on looking at reserves, so it goes out quite a bit, on 30 years. And then we wanted to make sure that the reserves were funded. So as we looked at that, based upon the balances that we had in place today, we did not have sufficient reserves going forward. And so one of the things that we're talking about tonight is an increase to prop back up that reserve fund, both as a special assessment and then moving forward as part of the rates to bring that back to where it needs to be. So in 2022, we did do an adjustment on the rates to address our rising operation and some maintenance costs, so that was completed. And we did the reserve study what we'll do with North Star is every year we'll basically update that. So we'll look at the things that were replaced and the revenues that were coming in, and we'll make any adjustments to outgoing years in terms of collections or what we expect expenditures to be. This is just an example table of the 2021 and going out on the cash flow. Typically, you can 100% fund a reserve account. It's typically more about 70% for operations similar to our sewer plant. And so that's where we kind of set the line in terms of percent funded. And so you can see it kind of evens out after the first couple years at in the 70% range. You can see 2021 and 2022, that's what really sent off the alarm. So we've got an 13% funded on reserves and 11% funded on reserves, and that was really deemed to be insufficient for what we needed to being paid for going forward. And so on that fourth line down, you see the contributions, $150,000 last year, $225,000 going forward, and then 2025 it ekes up to about $259,000 a year. And that basically keeps us where we want to be in terms of the percent funded. One thing, so this will be updated. You see on the, I guess the seventh line down on the special assessment, that $2.5 million. So that was really the first shot when we were working with Aaron about what we would need for the sludge removal, for the facility expansion, and for the reserves increase. Since that time, some of the work that both OMCS and Mountain Water Works did, we were able to bring that down. So Mike talked about, expansion of one sand filter. Well, when that was originally 2 sand filters that we were looking at that we thought we needed, but when OMCS did the sand change out, we came back and did the reevaluation of the flow. It was so much better that we could drop one of our sand filters off the increase list. So those numbers are going down. They'll be refreshed as we dive back into that study at the end of the year. Oops, sorry about that. This is just the balance going forward in the 30-year look, so you can kind of see what the reserves are each year, and you can see as we start in 2021, 2022 we're pretty low, but as we make the changes about what we're talking tonight, we start to build that back up to an acceptable number to be able to cover those expenses. The next thing I want to talk about, so we got that. So now you've got the engineering, you've got the operations. We've had Abigail look at really the legal side and all the agreements that are in place that really define what the responsibilities and the financial responsibilities between Cartwright and Hidden Springs are. So where are we on our financial update and our funding options going forward? So sewer company income sources. So we get income for operating a sewer company from several different places, from the sewer fees from both HSTA and CRTA, from interest, so of those reserves that we have set up or our balance in our operating accounts, we do generate some interest in that. Connection fees, same thing. So as John talked about, connection fees for Cartwright go back to the developer, but the connection fees for Hidden Springs right now are put into our reserve pile. And then late fees and others. So where people don't pay their fees, there is a fee attached. There's a late fee for that or interest for that, and so we collect a little bit of revenue on that also. I'm not saying don't pay your fees and make that bigger though. So please don't do that. It's important. It's important for the operation of this to definitely have the money to do it. Just to kind of give you an idea of where we are in 2022. So the income that we bring in for the sewer company, about $874,000. That amount is about 9% greater than the 2021 actual number. And there was a 10% fee increase that we made in the sewer fees for this year to accommodate expenses and to start the buildup of reserves. So our current Sewer fees are, for Hidden Springs are $170 a quarter, $177 for Cartwright because of the billing administrative fee. And just kind of as you want to know everything about this, our income is about 65% right now from Hidden Springs because we have a more residents than Cartwright Ranch does, about 35% from Cartwright Ranch. And then we always have a number of delinquent fees, so that we always keep a balance on that. We've got a process set up for recovery of those fees, going all the way to legal support to get those fees paid. But I think at the time I wrote these slides, about $5,200 in delinquent fees from Hidden Springs and about $2,700 from Cartwright Ranch. So that's the income side. So let's talk the expense side for just a minute. So a lot of things to pay for. So our contract operations and professional services, so that's where OMCS and Mountain Water Works and legal, all the operations, the maintenance and repairs, and a lot of these things are, again, you got that dividing line at $5,000, whether it comes out of the operating account or it goes to a reserve account. Equipment, which anything over $5,000 goes to reserve. Administration, which is an operating expense. Office, which is really an operating expense. Some of the inspection and cleaning work that we've done in the last couple of years on the Hidden Springs side, on the sewer lines, all the analytical work. So I think Mike did a good job of telling you how complicated it is, but in terms of all the flow balance, the three different pieces of collection, treatment, and discharge of the treated effluent. So that's all overlaid by the IDEQ permit. So you have to maintain all your operations within the parameters of that permit, and that requires quite a bit of analytical testing, whether you're for basically BODs or other things in your treated water, and then reserves. So on the budgeted expense side, our budget expense is about 8.1% higher than the 2021 budget was. Expenses is about 36% greater than 2021 actual, and that's really because 2021 was a pretty good year. And we didn't have a lot of things break. We didn't have a lot of big muckouts because we'd already done our muckouts and things like that. But that's one thing that the reserve study will really help us understand. Some years you're going to need a lot more money than other years. Last year was a pretty good year. Our number one expense in the Hidden Springs Sewer Company is our contract operations. That's OMCS with Jay and Ty, and those are basically about $300,000 a year, about 30% of the overall budget. And the biggest unknown, the thing that kind of keeps you worried and things are gonna work is really what are your failures gonna be? What are you gonna need to replace in terms of your equipment and the maintenance on those? Okay, so that just lists some of the capital projects that we've got going in 2022 with the switchgear, the lift station generator, the blowers that Mike talked about, turbidity emitter is a replacement, aerator blower. A lot of those things will be coming out of the reserve. They're higher expense items, but those are really the capital items that we're looking at this year at the current time. Okay, so 3 things going forward that are going to need more money than we've got today. So the wastewater treatment facility expansion. This is the blowers. This is putting in the new sand filter, but basically accommodating a little bit bigger capacity to basically meet the permit requirements for the facility and the customers we need to serve. That estimate's come down. It's currently at $1.2 million for that expansion, so that's a pretty big thing. Also, that expansion needs to be done, basically at one time. It's not something that'll take 5 years. It should come in, you get it done. So you're going to need your money kind of up front. You're going to need your money up front to do that work. Sludge removal, Pond 3, about $390,000. At one time, we thought both Pond 3 and 3A were going to need removal, which was basically double this amount. Some further probing and testing of sludge levels in 3A kind of revealed we think we have some more time on that pond. So what we've basically talking about tonight in terms of a special assessment for that, we were able to basically cut that in half. And then the reserve contribution, which I've already talked about, since we're underfunded in that, we're trying to prop that back up. That's about $535,000. So let's talk about the wastewater treatment facility expansion first. So this is the $1.2 million for the expansion in the equipment. There's really three ways we looked at it. It says, because you need the money now, so it'd be nice to be able to get a loan for this one. So IDEQ has a loan system that you can apply for that they basically support on an annual basis that has some funding in it. They make decisions. So it's on which facility gets that loan. I know that's overly simplistic, but so Mike, working with Mountain Water Works, we were able to apply for that loan. That hasn't been awarded. They haven't named the awardees. We did apply for a similar loan last year, and we were not accepted on it because we didn't meet between the number of people. The line was above where we were. We're still hopeful we can get it. The nice thing about that loan is it's a 30-year loan, so it's a nice payout. So it's not just us living in our houses today that are responsible for pay it back, but it's the guy living there 10 years from now, and maybe it's still us, or 20 years from now that has a responsibility that's using that service. It's also a fairly low interest rate loan. I think the last thing I heard on it was about 3%, which is a nice number. So we've got our fingers crossed. We'll get it. I think Lisa checked on it just this week, and it still hadn't been announced, but we were probably lower down on the list than we would have liked to be. But I know they had some more money than they did last year, so we're still hopeful on that one. Second one is we just get a bank loan. So this would be through one of our banking services. We do our operating and reserves accounts through CIT, so it may be them, but we'd basically shop around for the best rate that we can get. The disadvantage of this is the rate's probably higher, the loan rate's probably higher in the 5 to 6% range, and the term is less. So it's going to require a quicker payback. So the rate, basically the annual payback is going to be higher, as you can see from the 45 to the 115 in this one. And then if we decided not to get a loan and we just decided to do a straight special assessment, so we're just going to go do a special assessment and get the money, you can see that's a $934 special assessment that would be made for that. Our preference so far, barring input that we may get tonight and things like that, is really to keep chasing this IDEQ loan and see if we can get that in place. Number two, on the sludge removal for Pond 3, so this is the $390,000 project. We're looking at 2 special assessments per account in 2022, and the same thing for 2023. So you can see the numbers there at $152 and $144 that we would make twice in each of those years would pay for that. That would pay for the cost to do the Pond 3 sludge removal of the $390,000. And then the reserve contribution, what we're looking at in that for the $535,000 that really came out of the reserve study, we would do a $208 special assessment per account in 2022 and $197 special assessment in 2023. So what does this really rack up to? So this is a table. Again, this will be available to see, so you don't have to memorize it all tonight and things. But looking at the 3 options on the loan and kind of going down by each of the years, you can see the total costs. And certainly with interest, you see increased costs over the longer term of the loan, all the way down to the end. But again, the loan would be serviced over time. And then just the caveat on the bottom, this doesn't include operating and maintenance costs. So If operations costs go up, if those contract costs go up, those adjustments are just made basically in the budget year to year, as opposed to forecasting them going out. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay, so we're almost finished and we're almost time for question and answer. I just wanted to touch on a few things that we can all do to keep our sewer system healthy. Thank you. Fats, oils, and grease. If you can keep those out of the drain and put them in your trash, that's much better. The fats clog the drains, and we had handouts up there because there's fats and things that you wouldn't even realize that you shouldn't be putting down your garbage disposal. There's also a list that we have up there of the things that don't break down. So flushable wipes, they're not really flushable, so please don't put those down. If you could put those in the trash, that would be great. And again, John touched on this, but we need to avoid salt or potassium chloride regenerative soft water systems because they are damaging not only to the components in the facility, but also our landscape because they don't come out of the clay soil. Okay, I'm sure everyone is dying to ask their questions. So I will walk this around.
Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, I have a question on the home count that's used in some of these numbers. You've shown the same cost per unit, but I assume there's going to be more houses built in Cartwright Ranch. So if it's a fully amortizing straight loan, I would expect the cost per unit to go down as the number of homes go up. And also there was a number used that showed the historical increase in the number of homes in Cartwright Ranch. There was a big increase shown in the outflows, and you guys in the reserve study seem to use a steady home count. So I'm kind of confused about what numbers are being used in these studies.
Yeah, for the assessments, and Lisa can probably shed more on this, but for the assessments, we did step it up with because we're not complete at build out in Cartwright yet. So we stepped it up each of the years for the next, I think, 2 years until we hit the build out amount. So we basically took the total need divided by the number of residents for that specific year and did the same thing for that next year.
But it showed the same cost per unit, and I don't see.
I'll have to go back and look at it, yeah.
So that 2017 is the number. So is that based on the current home count or a projected home count at some time in the future?
So that's why we have the difference there. So when I did the calculations, I think I have my notes. Hold
Well,
on
I'm
just
sort
one
of
second.
focused on that 2017. I understand that as the loan
Okay.
is paid off, that would be.
The loan cost will be incorporated into your annual payment. Because we have more homes online in 2024, it drops down to 43.
Okay, so in the 2017 number, how many homes is that based on?
That's based on the total number of homes would be 8. Oh, I'd have to do the math. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's something you can share with us later?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, absolutely.
With us in September getting our board in Cartwright Ranch, are we going to be able to get board seats on the sewer for representation or a liaison? I think it's fair. I mean, we're going to have 577 houses and we're customers.
Yeah, so it's a valid question.
Speak up, please.
Yeah, sorry.
I'll be the
And you know what?
I'll be the microphone.
Okay. Maybe to make this easy so everybody's able to ask questions, so we're not just going around. If you want to come up here and stand in line, we'll kind of do a line. I don't know how else to do it. There's not that many, but feel free if you want to do that. We'll hit those first. It's a valid question. We haven't talked about it. I think it's worth discussing. Probably not going to put a Cartwright Ranch Town Association Town Council person on the Hidden Springs Sewer Company council, because the Hidden Springs Sewer Company is still owned by HSTA. So I doubt that. Again, I'm talking off the cuff. We haven't talked about that internally, but certainly having a liaison from the Cartwright Ranch Town Association is completely valid.
It would also have a positive, though, because it would bring the communities together, working together, versus a lot of the history that's happened.
There isn't anybody who wants a more cohesive community than the people sitting up here, period.
That's what
Yeah, so just, but, okay, I just want to make sure. Yep, okay. Let's go here first, sir.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for all your hard work, pardon me, on this. I really appreciate it. I guess my question is, I know there are a number of things that are in flux about these different options and how much they're going to cost, but what is the board's preference, recommendation for what we should do, since you've thought about it a lot? And secondly, is that preferable to any other options? So you mentioned that at one point connecting with the Boise sewer system was an option. I don't know if that still is or not, but have you evaluated other options besides these? Thank you.
Does that, anybody want me to answer?
Let me answer at least on the preferences of the board, and it really is, I mean, it's somewhat of a reason of holding the meeting tonight is getting input if there are other thoughts and things like that we're trying to incorporate that in decision making. But certainly I think if we could get the IDEQ loan, it's basically tailored for what we're doing. It's a lower interest rate, it's a longer payout, and it's a less increase that you will see, right now, next year, the next year, and things like that. So it kind of keeps it equitable in terms of the people that will be using the service, whether that's you living in your house today, whether that's the family living there 10 years from now. They're both paying for that type of service over that length of term of loan. In terms of the sludge and the reserve study, I think special assessments is really the recommendation that we've had for both of those to move forward with. We tried to be, I guess, equitable or make it as easy on people as we can, where we've divided that into two parts as opposed to just making one payment. There would be two assessments in each of the 2 years to try to make that a little bit more palatable on the checkbook. So that's really where we are in terms of our recommendations and how we would propose moving forward. I cannot answer the Boise sewer one. So.
Well, I do want to mention one other thing that we're trying to think outside the box too, so it doesn't just slap you in the face with a big payment of 2017 or whatever it ends up looking like, even down to the 1635. So we've approached some private banks and talked to them about a microfinancing option where the balance is assumed by the pay. So we need the money, right, to do the upgrades. Excuse me, to the sewage facility or to the water facility. So we need the money, and so that payment needs to be made, but carrying the debt would be you taking out an account, and so they would structure a very simplified loan going out to each person. If you weren't able to, if we did decide on the 1635 option, but doing a microfinance loan to the individual residents who would need something like that, and obviously the terms on that haven't been developed completely, but it is trying to think outside the box to provide different options. That hasn't been decided on. That is just trying to show the proactivity that we're trying to take in terms of making it more palatable to everybody.
I would say too, please know that we've in the beginnings of these discussions, there are varying ideas and varying opinions on the board. So if you are really for number one or number three, you probably are represented here by one of us, because we've already had these discussions. Not all of us agree perfectly yet, one of the reasons we have this. But the other piece of this, and I think the gentleman mentioned it, is if you can think of a great option that's not one of these, please let us know, because we are open. We're not married to any of this yet, and that's why we have these meetings here. And please share this with your neighbors as well, because we need that option.
And one of the things that I'll just jump in with respect to the question about alternatives, we did look at several different alternatives as part of the planning process. The alternative we talked about tonight from a technical standpoint was by far made the most sense. It was the least expensive, it was the least invasive, least impact to the customers. So yeah, we looked at alternatives of connecting to City of Boise system or installing a different treatment plant up there that would allow surface discharge. And none of that really made sense from a cost standpoint.
Hey, Jeff, just an easy one. When does the timeline end for the IDE2 decision? I mean, time is moving here, and you need the money before next year. So what's the real timeline?
I think we'll know in the next month.
Yeah, we should know by the end of the month.
Okay.
That's right. I had a question for Aaron. Aaron, what I was told is that the national standards require 100% funding. That from Community Association Institute, which is a national organization for HOAs like this particular HOA. What is your professional recommendation to the board of directors in terms of how they should fund? Because being an owner in Cartwright Ranch, like this gentleman over here, I assume you're with Cartwright Ranch. I think at some point we'd like to have a say as owners on this board. But I know in order to protect nonprofit entities like this board of directors, I mean, they're all volunteers. What's your professional recommendation? Because my understanding is that national standards require 100% funding. I don't want to see us get into this situation again where homeowners are going to get hit with reserves. You have new people buying into the community that are now going to get hit with this kind of stuff where the developer hasn't disclosed this to us, or even told us about this stuff that seems to be in discussion for quite some time. So it's going to make a lot of the Cartwright Ranch people pissed off. So I just want to make sure that going forward, these guys are protected, the future boards are protected. So what's your professional recommendation?
So the simple and direct answer is that I gave the board a low and a high watermark, and the high watermark is 70%, and they went with a high watermark.
Okay.
So, which is great. So we operate in 7 states, and some of those states regulate HOAs and different types of HOAs and condominium complexes, and some of them require a reserve study that demonstrates 100%.
Right.
For a community like this, it wouldn't be my recommendation that you need to be 100% funded. Matter of fact, if you were to take this study and look at it 30 years out, even though you have this loan on the table to fund a very heavy funding year, it's not the heaviest year of all 30 years. So what's interesting is once you're properly funded at 70%, you're your own bank, and all of the money works without future need for loans on heavier years than the one you're loaning to right now.
Right. Okay. No, because I was just looking at the number of 2.5 million, and even taking the 2.5 million divided by the number of homes, we're talking about roughly $1,900, per household. Luckily, we got the numbers, and it's not a huge hit. It's going to be, hard for some people. I have some other follow-up questions more, but I'll let the other gentleman go.
What's the limit of the number of houses that we're contractually obligated to put on this system? How many more houses can Cartwright build that we're required to provide service for?
Cartwright, per the sharing agreement, we will service 620 Cartwright Ranch homes. My understanding is your build out is 571.
Okay. And my other question is, we're looking at a drought in the west. Did you assume any reduction in the amount of water that's going to be coming into Hidden Springs going forward? Or is that just going to be a bonus to us if there is a reduction?
The water that goes in this, so yes, if people take shorter showers, if people do less laundry, if less is going through the drain, less will hit the system, but the expansion still needs to be done in order for the redundancy that Mike talked about.
Again, remember, sewer system, storm drain, completely independent. Theoretically, some water, as Mike pointed out, some water from, when there's big storm stuff, and 2017 when we had Snowmageddon here, right, we saw an increase in in influent, right? But that's because water is seeping into through the manhole covers for the sewer system. But two independent circuits, if you will, for sewer and for storm.
So basically what goes through this system is what we buy from Suez.
Exactly. Yep, the goes ins theoretically equal to goes outs. Yeah, if you added up all of what all of us individually buy, should theoretically be pretty darn close.
Sir, but it's minus your landscape irrigation.
Yeah, minus your, yep, good point. Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I have a question about whether or not all of these options, if these are our choices, I know you said that there could be other things that we could suggest that you would consider, but does it have to be the whole community makes a decision on option A, B, or C? In other words, if there are residents that want to pay the $1,635 up front, and there's sufficient number of residents that want to do that, and that offsets the amount of money that has to be then applied for a loan, is that an option? Or it also, could you break down option 3 into, say, 3 even payments instead of taking a loan on it, but make it a little bit easier to make an installment on option 3?
Yeah, so just real quick, because Ryan, I know you want to comment. I'm gonna let you. But so the first question you asked is, could residents vote on it? And theoretically, yeah, if we thought we could get 2/3 of this of the communities to vote, then yeah, maybe that might be an option. We can't get 100 people to vote out of 900 when we do votes every year. So I would put to you that will never happen. Would it be awesome if we could? Heck yeah, there's a lot of things we could do in both Hidden Springs and Cartwright Ranch. I assume there's going to be some town council, future Cartwright Ranch town council people sitting in this room. Good luck with that. I mean, if there's a way to get more votes, man, tell us, because it would be awesome. There's a truckload of things that we could do to make our community, and I say that our community, better by getting more votes, because there's things in CC&Rs, there's programs, there's policies, all things that could make this place better. There's infinite options, right? So what those are, we're not here to make personal decisions. We're here to represent everybody here, and do what the community wants. Ryan's going to comment here on an option that he's done a bunch of research on to try to make it easier for people that maybe couldn't afford a special assessment, and whether it's the complete special assessment or the smaller one. So Ryan, go ahead.
Yeah, just exactly what you just talked about. That was kind of the idea, was to be able to do a 3-tier payment or something like that. The reality is we do have to have the money, right, to do the assessment, but the bank would be willing to do small lines of credit, is essentially what it would be if we were to run it through them. So 3 payments, we can't wait for the 3rd one to come through. We have to be able to pay up front. So the option to do it, yeah, that was the idea. Hey, maybe it's 3 payments of whatever that is divided by 3. But looking into that, where it might be, because the comment was by the banker, well, isn't that area full of $1 million homes? And I said, yeah, but when everybody bought them, they weren't $1 million homes. So the idea is that maybe we can, maybe that might be tough for certain. And not everybody's going to need to use that. I mean, if you can write the check, great. If not, we're looking for options.
In case we have to anticipate that capital improvements have to be made to accommodate the salt that people are putting into the system. Well, no one's supposed to be putting salt in the system, right? But that's a catch-up thing, I think. Not everybody does have a no salt system. So since I have one, I like to register that I have one, and not be charged for any capital improvement that comes, because some folks do have salt in their softening system.
I'm not sure I exactly understand your question, but yeah, so if you have a regenerative soft water system and you live in Cartwright or Hidden Springs?
Cartwright.
Yeah, so theoretically you're violating your CC&Rs, and like I said before, that's going to catch up.
How? how will it catch up to the flagrant?
I'm sorry, say that again?
How will it catch up to the people that aren't obeying? You go around, you're not going to inspect my garage.
No.
So I would like to register that I have the proper system. So I'm not charged for improvements up on the hill.
Wait, you're saying you have a regenerative system?
No, we get
Understood.
Culligan.
Now I understand. Okay, yeah. Gotcha. Go ahead.
But we invested a lot of money in another no-salt system. It didn't work. Then we had to throw that away.
Yeah, so you're not going to like the answer.
Yeah.
But the answer is we don't know. I mean, to your point, we don't have the legal authority to go and inspect homes.
So might I register?
Hang on. No, hang on. Yeah, no, so it's not going to work like you think it is. That's why I said you're not going to like the answer. So are there ways to monitor salt in the influent on the individual branch circuits that feed the influent to the lift station? And the answer to that is yes. And so we're certainly looking at it. What the outcome of that measurement study will be is unknown. This board has and previous boards, we've got some previous board members, we've talked about this in Infinium. So how do you police that rule? It's a difficult one for sure, but it will be at least monitored, and we'll analyze it and figure it out from there. The answer to your question, so if you don't have it, why should you pay if your neighbors do? I wish I had a good answer for you, but I don't. Does anybody else have a good answer?
Yeah, just kind of listening to what you said, you basically said all the expansion of the wastewater treatment facility was for salt. That's
not this expansion.
Okay.
We've received information from somebody above us that says if we ever have to improve that plant up there because you're putting salt in, you'll have to pay for it.
The improvements that we're doing aren't for the salt.
I know.
It's for the
These
capacity.
improvements aren't. Thank you.
So I just wanted to ask, I think you already answered it. So the board is ultimately going to make the decision. It's not going to be a vote because you said you couldn't get enough people. Is that correct?
Yeah.
At this point?
Could we get 2/3 of the community to vote? Good. I mean, that makes our job easier, right? I mean, we're up here trying to figure out what everybody wants when, it's difficult. So the answer is no, it probably will not go to a vote.
Right. Okay. So I just want to voice my opinion. I'm not in favor of taking out any kind of loans. Just do the assessment, your plan, where individuals can take a loan. I like that. That hadn't occurred to me, but I think that's a great idea. But as far as the company or HTSTA, I don't like it. You take out a loan, it costs a lot more money. Why should we pay that? And you're saying a lot of people bought these homes when they weren't million-dollar homes. I understand that, but we're not talking about a fantastic amount of money, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. It's much better to pay as we go. So I'm in favor of your plan, buddy.
Appreciate the input. Thank you.
I had a further comment. I'm certainly willing to abide by whatever the board decides. You've spent a lot more time on this and know a lot more about it than I do, and be happy to do whatever you recommend and decide. I just wanted to clarify a fact, however. When we were talking a few years ago about tying the new homes in Cartwright Ranch into the system, I understood that the Grossman companies had made a capital contribution of $1.6 million or something or other for infrastructure. And from what you said tonight, it sounds like they made a loan for infrastructure. And I realize you're not responsible for this. It's ancient history. And I certainly don't want it to be a bone of contention. I favor unity between the communities, absolutely. But am I right that they did not make a capital contribution, which was my understanding? They loaned the money against receipt of these connection fees, which otherwise would have gone to Hidden Springs or the sewer company.
You said that 100% correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say that the town council will take a look at that. The new town council, I'm hoping, is going to look at that over at Cartwright, because that doesn't seem fair. But
yeah, so nobody is more tired of listening to this group with one person pitching the biggest fit than Abby. And I promise you, Abby has looked into that as diligently as possible. And effectively, the answer is no.
Well, I think it'll be left up to the individual owners to figure out what was represented to them. Maybe it's not an HOA issue, as council probably has told you. But anyway, my question is, and this came up, you know, the numbers are fair. I've been with other HOAs where the reserves studies are not done. One of the questions I was asked by a group of the owners over at Cartwright was, why wasn't there other reserve studies done sooner? You know, if this was taken over by Hidden Springs in 2009, and now we're here in 2022. What happened between 2009 and 2022? Obviously, you had other boards that maybe just didn't react quick enough. And the second part is, since Cartwright Ranch wasn't really started till 2016, which is about 7 years later, is there any look at allocating a larger portion of the $1,600 to Hidden Springs owners versus the Cartwright Ranch owners that are just coming online within a relatively shorter period of time? Is there going to be some kind of equitable allocation based on years of service?
So you think Hidden Springs residents should have been paying throughout the years until today, so that the plant was set up to process Cartwright Ranch residents' homes? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm asking, number one, why wasn't there a reserve study done sooner so that everybody buying into this, even brand new people buying into Hidden Springs, don't know what's going on until they get hit with this?
So the answer is there were reserve studies done, and those were effectively followed. But you got to understand, you heard a bunch of it today, right? The plant was operating in normal operation mode when it was just 861 homes, right?
Was a reserve study done by somebody like Aaron, or was it just a board? Because I know some associations don't have to hire reserve specialists like Aaron's company.
Who did it, Lisa?
Sorry, it wasn't a reserve study. It was SPF Engineering was commissioned by the board in 2009 to do a rate analysis.
Okay. Was there anything done from 2009 till this current? Was there ever a professional reserve study done?
No.
Okay, so I mean, it's just we have to deal with the facts. I'm not attacking the board, previous boards, and saying why didn't you guys do it? You know, for whatever reason. I just want to be able to explain to the owners, just saying, hey, there wasn't one done. It's finally been done. It's not that bad of a number. Let's move on. And I think my goal is to move on, but some owners do want to know, has the board considered looking at an equitable allocation? If the answer is no, because we think everybody should carry the cost because you're all part of the system, that's fine. I don't care. I mean, personally, I'm just saying that's a question that's being asked by other homeowners that are saying, hey, we bought into this. And maybe we need to talk to the developer who never told us about this crap, literally, and told us about the ticket that we're buying. And I think it pisses off the people in Cartwright Ranch that you guys don't have the funds from whatever the hell that company's called, Grossman or whatever they are, just because that's not fair. You guys should have had that money as part of your capital budget, and I don't understand how Grossman gets away with that kind of stuff. So,
I think you're singing our tune, man. So you want to come to the meetings? Come on.
No, we totally support you. I'm a new owner here, so that's why I'm just.
Well, and I'm going to speak for John because he's the biggest advocate, anti-advocate, whatever you want to call. Truth is, this was done way before any of us assumed any of these positions, right? So now we're all left to kind of wade ourselves out of this muck, both Cartwright side and the Hidden Springs side, right? So
yeah, and I've worked with boards similar to Madeline. Is it Madeline? I'm sorry, or Adeline?
Abigail.
Abigail. I'm sorry. I screw up with names all the time. But anyway, I want to let you guys know that my sort of the people that I get to speak to, I want to advocate to help you guys and to look at the issues and see if there's anything we can do to leverage this, because really it should not be the board's sole burden. And I'm sorry that we don't have more owners here to sort of help you guys out. And if there's anything we can do, I hope we can,
Thank you,
help
sir.
out.
Much appreciated from everybody here.
So a question I would have is, well, first a comment is that under the three options, when you look at option 1, 2, and 3, the concern that I have with option 1 is, the interest rate is lower, but obviously the total cost is higher over a longer period of time. My concern would be then is when version 2 of this happens in 10 or 15 years, no fault of our own, where another special assessment may be required, we're still paying on the first special assessment. And so it becomes the stacking effect, right? So I think that's something the board should consider. The second thing is that, and again, I used to do, this kind of stuff where I used to work. And my concern is that, there's a series of assumptions that go into building, right, what this reserve account should be. And there's a probability of any one of those things happening. Obviously, you might have an electrical pump that has a useful life of 5 or 6 or 8 years go out, and it's probably not going to last past 10. But if there's something big, right, that fails, either as a result of an environmental situation like an earthquake or something like that, how does the board deal with those kinds of things? Do we have catastrophic insurance? If there was, I think these are earthen dams essentially around these ponds. If one of those earthen dams fail because of, another earthquake, how do we deal with those kinds of things? Granted, it's maybe a low probability, but I think it should be part of the plan, right?
Yeah, so they handed me the mic, so I think I have the answer.
Good.
So let me take it in 2 parts. So the first is, and again, I'm not on the board, so it's almost certain that you have catastrophic insurance, right? And so what's that? Okay, you have insurance. Okay, so here's what's happening then. So keeping that in mind, so here's what's happening with the reserve study. So your board is elected to go with the high water mark, which is really great for a community with this type of asset, right? We're talking specifically the sewer treatment facility. So what's happening here is this loan that you're discussing here is really a game of catch up. You're just playing catch up. The loan is helping you catch up and get back to a level of funding where the sewer company is then funding their reserves as its own bank, right? And so you're funding for future needs, including these contingencies that can and probably will come up. But there's flexibility in that because there are several assumptions. Right. Now, the other thing that I think is important to distinguish, and I think this gets confused a lot, is that the reserve study is not a maintenance schedule. It's a funding model, and they're very closely married. Matter of fact, as close as we could possibly get them, we want to marry those together. But it is a funding model and not a maintenance schedule, which means that once an item is fully funded, let's say you have a $30,000 pump that needs replacement and it's funded in a given year, but Jay says, you know what, we don't need to replace it yet, I've got another 2 years on that. That money is sitting in the coffers because it's funded, not that it's ready, not that you're going to expend it yet, right? So there's flexibility in that while the sewer company is behaving as its own, really banking institution, its own reserve level of funding at a 0% interest, so that's ideal. So you're playing catch up right now, I hope this answers your question. You're playing catch up right now with your options on the table here and how you want to catch up and how you want to go through the pain of that catch up, right? Because it's just math, right? You just, you gotta catch up some way or another, or you're carrying a high level of risk for those items that will hit you later, and we want to avoid that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and it works well if, for instance, if the person who's managing the system says that pump that was supposed to be replaced at year 8 maybe has 2 more years of useful life, the replacement's still there, right? It's not a windfall that we can then spend somewhere else. The fact is that the pump's still got to be replaced, and I think it's the due diligence there that helps us going forward from coming back to these same conversation again.
So there's another assumption too that is important to remember, and it was mentioned earlier that this is going to be an annual update, right? So annually we're going to be looking at this. It's really, now that all the heavy lifting's been done, the annual update is not only easy, but cheap. And so it's easy to look at this, it's easy to update the numbers, it's easy to have follow-up conversations with vendors and understand, well, what is aging properly, what's aging hard, what other problems are coming, and to pivot the study in any given year.
Okay, thank you very much.
Can I just make a minor point on the costs over the next 30 years for the loans? That's just the increase in HOA due to the loan. You can imagine over the next 30 years, there will be increases due to increases in maintenance costs, landscaping, pool maintenance, those other issues. So when you're looking at that, that's just the increase in HOA due to the loans. So keep that in mind also.
The other, just real quick, the other thing to consider is the budget, which is effectively the dues for the sewer, and this is true with HOA as well, at least for Hidden Springs, but that gets analyzed every year, right? So, you know, we have a treasurer as well as the town manager's office. That all gets analyzed every year. So theoretically, like when we have a good year where we don't have to spend a lot of money, there may or may not, and that's why you see the increases over the years have fluctuated, because it's a conscious effort to keep it as close to balanced as possible. So, you know, I'm not going to try and be an economist here and talk about what inflation is going to look like over the next 3 to 5 years. Good luck with that, right? But it is analyzed every year. Part of the budget process that starts in the town manager's office, typically in August and September, is to analyze where we stand that year.
Okay, I have a technical question, but I got an idea how you could maybe get your decision. You could send out a Google poll, option 1, 2, 3, and this is why, and then the percentage of who's on top, that's the winner, and then nobody votes, but you still get an answer. Just an idea.
Yeah, I mean, theoretically, you know, could that help? Surveys have been done around here before, and they've never been terribly successful. They don't produce enough numbers that help us make better decisions. And frankly, a lot of times they make it worse, because you know it's typically the people that want to voice strongly, which is good. But you know, for instance, we did a recent deal on a community improvement project and got less than 100 people to respond. It's just not a valid data set to do anything with.
So here's my question, though. It's to the water guys. I talked to Ada County, and I learned all about how Ada County and housing works. How state-of-the-art is our system? Is there an expiration date on these ponds? What are we looking at the future? What's Avamore doing? What are the other facilities doing? And Pierce Park Heights is going to be City of Boise for sewer, and that's going to be closer than any hookup that's new that you can feasibly hook into, Ada County told me. So I'm just kind of curious, and I'll sit down if you guys can explain all that, because I know you got to get annexed from the cities and all that. But I'm really curious on our system, on if it's got an expiration date, because I know sewer systems do need to get ripped out at some time, and when is that, and how far are we?
Great question. That was a pretty loaded one right there. So in regards to it being state of the art, lagoons are probably some of the most ancient types of treatment that the human race has ever come up with. They are the most simple, basic treatment process out there, besides just maybe screening and tossing it on some ground. So in regards to it being super technical, no, absolutely not. It's very, very simple. You're seeing a lot of emerging technologies that involve filtration, stuff of that nature. And this component here is passive. The system is extremely efficient at what it does. The lagoon lining is a polyethylene lining that's meant to have a half-life of hundreds of, I mean, we talk about plastics all the time, hundreds of years. It just doesn't break down. We do annual seepage testing, seepage testing on these every 10 years to verify that the lining is still good and accommodating the storage purposes and treatment purposes of it. Those then go to DEQ for approval, and if repairs need to be made, they get made at a much cheaper rate than what it would cost to install infrastructure up over the hill into the city of Boise, or into the city of Eagle. However, they decided to do it. Infrastructure is a major cost. These cities have moratoriums in place. City of Boise has a moratorium out in southeast Boise because they have aging infrastructure that they're dealing with in town. 900 miles of pipeline that absolutely needs to be rehabbed because of years of use, and they can't fund putting new pipeline in. So the expiration date on that really hinges on how the community takes care of it, and this community takes extremely good care of this facility, I would say. I liken it to Grandpa's tools versus today's tools, and we're taking care of Grandpa's tools up there because it's the best option I think that we have right now. I think previously, before Hidden Springs was in the planning stages, they looked at going at the city of Boise, and back then it was too expensive, and it's only gotten more expensive now, and you have the asset. So I think the cheaper route is to maintain that asset and keep it up to snuff, because it's a great little system. So yeah, does that answer your question? Yeah, I certainly don't. I know it's been looked at in the past, but I couldn't tell you today's numbers. But I know between having and maintaining one, and between installing and continuing to pay taxes over it, like you're going to end up with taxes, and they're going to raise them arbitrarily throughout the years based on system performance and needs. A great example, I live out in the city of Boise. We just got slapped with biannual or bi-monthly, or every 2 months we're paying $117 a payment just for sewer fees because they misappropriated funds, didn't fund their system for years and years. If you maintain this system, it's going to pay for itself over and over and over again, and we're just trying to get to a place where it's called what's called an enterprise fund, where it just basically keeps itself going over and over and over again. So I think that the maintaining the system, maintaining the vehicle is always going to be the cheaper route than going out and buying a new one and then depreciating that immediately. I guess is my best explanation, yeah.
I just wanted to make a quick suggestion. If the sewer company hasn't already done this, I would suggest that you reach out to Cartwright Ranch and try to add some Cartwright Ranch people to your board. And I would also suggest maybe that the Homeowners Association Board of Hidden Springs see if Cartwright Ranch will appoint a liaison to your board and vice versa, so that the two communities start to know what each other is doing. Or you might also have some kind of joint committee. I realize that the governing documents call for you to have your own independent boards, but there ought to be ways that you can structurally facilitate regular interaction.
Hi. So I'm a resident of about 1 year now, and in that time I've seen some Zoom meetings. I've listened to the candidates when you guys interviewed, and it's always been very open for me if I want to engage, and I appreciate that. I've also met neighbors who've griped about things and don't appreciate what they don't do, and so I guess I want to start with a, hey, thanks for doing this, because I get it's volunteer. With that said, I have a few questions. I kind of focused on the third bucket of where we get rid of our wastewater that's been cleaned already. Obviously, Cartwright, I see them as neighbors, and I think of this valley as one spot, but with them not taking that, I'm curious, was that truly just Grossman back in the day? Was that the maple tree example? That I get it, we love them, they're nice, but there's other green spots at Hidden Springs, thoroughly, it looks beautiful, and we're using the water there. As Cartwright, what's the tone over there to say, let's reevaluate it? Maybe, I don't know, when's that Grossman loan, which that gentleman helped us identify? It wasn't an investment, it was a loan. Like, when that's done, is Cartwright ready to say, let's look at other ways to use that water? We got the fire station coming on. I have no idea what water training things can be done with forest fires? Like, is there a way to get rid of that water in other ways we're not thinking about yet? Using our neighbors, both home neighbors and firefighter neighbors. Let's see. I think I had a question, but really it was, what's the tone of Cartwright as we become more neighbors with them and get Grossman out of the picture of utilizing the water that we're all contributing to? Because sometimes I'm like, all right, it's an asset for Hidden Springs. We share it with Cartwright right now if I put on a black and white hat. And it seems to me if that $1.6 million loan is done or not going toward, I guess my point is maybe a $7 admin fee isn't enough to offset their contributing but not helping us get rid of it. Because as a new neighbor, I'm all for, I can swing $1,700. I'd rather pay it and be done, and I recognize that I bought into this place and I love it, but I don't want it to go on and on. Tonight somebody pointed out that it's nice that new people can come in and carry it, but I think I fall on the path of I don't want to stack loan on loan on loans. So I'm grateful tonight that it's $2,000 at the most, $1,600 not, and I'd rather pay it and be done and figure out how to work with Cartwright to get rid of the gray water. So anyway, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that. Wow, you said a lot there. A few comments. Nobody looks at this valley as one community more than this board. I assure you that. We view not only just for customers of Hidden Springs Sewer Company, and that's the way we look at it. Those customers, while some might live in Cartwright Ranch and some might live in Hidden Springs, those are customers of the Hidden Springs Sewer Company, period, end of discussion. You talk to anybody that's been on this board that I've known since 2015, and it's absolutely been viewed like that. So point one there. To reiterate, we did offer this water, the reuse water, to the Grossman Company within the last 60 days, and they chose not to do that. Could the Cartwright Ranch Town Association, Town Council, when it's developed, when the community is handed over to the town, could those discussions be reopened? I don't know why not. There's certainly stuff to be talked about. We'll certainly discuss, liaisons, and certainly as we've been kind of waiting for that town council to be developed and have open communications. This is absolutely one community, period. As you guys know, we've drawn, sharing agreements for events and things like that to try to keep this very cohesive. It is complicated. We were all handed this, not in a perfect way, so we're trying to make an imperfect world as perfect as possible. You had one final thing that I wanted to comment on. Gosh darn it, you said so much there, sir. I'll come back to it. Yeah, no, your comments were appreciated.
Let me make a quick comment too. So you don't, with your fees or your dues, right? You're paying to be able to flush the toilet, to take a shower, right? It doesn't. The sewer, so the water treatment plant, that getting rid of the water is the other side of the book, right? So for example, Cartwright, if they don't want the water, that's up to them. It's like your loss. You guys are still paying, but everybody's paying to flush the toilet is essentially what it is. So keep that perspective versus like, oh, you're entitled to this water that you've already flushed down the toilet. That has nothing to do with it. You're paying to take care of the toilet water.
Yeah, all of the cost for applying the water, the irrigation water, to Hidden Springs common spaces is the HOA pays for that. So we pay for that through our HOA dues. We don't charge Cartwright Ranch for watering our green spaces. It's two separate things. So the HOA will pay for any increase, or like we're increasing the irrigation main line through the agricultural field. None of that cost is burdened to Cartwright Ranch. So, and then I have a question. You go ahead, and then I have a question that came in through text.
I think he was...
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, sir.
Go ahead, Dick.
Dick Keplinger. I have two questions. My understanding is Cart Ranch paid us $1 million up front. So the first question is, was that enough? And my second question is, as a result of all the issues that we're having here now, is that mostly a result of the addition of Cartwright Ranch?
I'm not sure that I would ask the question the way you asked it. We're not trying to view this as a combative way at all. The first question you asked is, did Grossman Properties pay $1 million? It was actually $1.6 million. They paid that up front back when the ponds were increased from 3 to 5. But the way that accounting happens is, as each individual house is built in Cartwright Ranch, that builder pays a connection fee to the Hidden Spring Sewer Company of $22.50, and immediately that money is returned back to Grossman. So yes, that isn't, you can do the math on that however you want. The next question you asked that I'm not sure that I would have, I appreciate what you're saying, Dick, but I'm not sure I would ask it that way. So is the sizing and changes and additions to the plant having to be changed because more homes are being added to our community? Yes. Was it always known that that was probably going to happen? Well, it kind of depends on who you talk to, right? If you talk to Farmer Engineering way back in the day when they designed all this, theoretically they designed it right. If you talk to people on this board that have read that engineering document and where they used words like should and could in an engineering design document for a plant operation facility, some of us might say, no, it probably wasn't designed exactly right. But that doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, we're going to bring it up to snuff and make it so it's a very efficient and as economical as possible for everybody sitting here.
Thanks for your comments.
Yep, I appreciate what you asked, though, Dick. Thank
you.
It's valid. Yep, Kristen.
Okay, thank you all for your time and energy spent on all this. I really do appreciate it. My question really refers back to the gentleman who is, I think you were talking about the Cartwright Ranch division of cost, and how we charge Hidden Springs and how we charge Cartwright Ranch for the Hidden Springs Sewer Company dues. And so my question is really for Abigail, and looking at the agreements that were established, do we have the ability to charge each different entity differently?
Yes. So the one thing that we're restricted to is we cannot charge the different customers, so Cartwright Ranch versus Hidden Springs Town Association customers. We cannot charge them in a discriminatory manner. So in other words, we can't just make a baseless charge to one customer that isn't supported by the actual cost of service. So in the situation where there is a cost that is associated with a Cartwright Ranch customer that is higher, for example, than what it would cost to serve a Hidden Springs Town Association customer, that would be something that we could charge for. Also, in the situation of the hookup fees and connection fees being reimbursed to Grossman Company, in that situation, there would be the ability for the Hidden Springs Town Association or Hidden Springs Sewer Company to charge Cartwright Ranch an additional fee for the reserves and the depreciation that is not being paid by those customers. However, that just increases the cost to the Cartwright Ranch customer exponentially, where it's really the Grossman Company that's receiving the benefit of that. Does that answer your question?
Yep, a question came in, so we're streaming this live, and a question was texted in. Is it feasible to attempt to get a homeowner vote, and if there isn't enough representation, the town council recommendation will be followed?
Yeah, I'll answer that again. I don't think that's even, I mean, it's so much work and so much cost. We've gone through this before. It's never been successful. There's never been any fruits of doing surveys that are meaningful. And it's not free. I mean, yeah, theoretically, yeah, you just do a survey monkey. But again, it's a lot of work for staff. And whoever asked that, I doubt that would be fruitful. Anybody else? Lisa, do you have any comments on?
Well, just to explain, the association is obligated or through the bylaws, we have to give 30 days notice. So we would have to do a mailing to every customer to give them the opportunity and give them the time frame to respond in order for it to be representative and basically acceptable. If, for example, you are someone that isn't on social media and we put it out there on social media, you would have grounds to come back and say, well, it wasn't fair. You didn't notice everyone. So there's a cost associated with that. You know, the fulfillment house doing it, the stamps, everything else. I mean, it's a few $1,000s to do a mailing. So I just not sure we want to spend the money on doing that. And my other thing is, you learned a lot here tonight. There was a lot of information. For the people that didn't attend, you know, do they have enough information to make a informed decision on which option is best?
I guess just for council, my question is, isn't the decision to do one of these just within the purview of the board? It's not really an owner's vote decision. So, I mean, I totally support whatever the board does, but I'm just interested in knowing what the law is here. Is it actually, does the board have a choice to go out to the ownership to get a vote, or is it purely within the purview of the board to make that decision? I would think it's just the board decision using business judgment. And
it is,
okay.
Absolutely. That all said, we and every council that I've been on over the years has always viewed this as, we're here to represent the people that live here and do what the people that live here want, not what any of us want individually. So yes, it will come to a board vote.
Okay, yeah, I just want to make sure that people watch and understand that it's, at the end of the day, you guys got to make the call. So, okay, sorry.
Yep.
Okay, sorry. Keeping on my toes. Thank you for being here, all of you. I know this is a hard position, and you guys kind of have to go on the defense, but I appreciate you staying on the offense tonight. I have a question for Abigail. Although I'm not Sue happy, I'm curious if there is, in your opinion, any cost-effective way to go after Grossman, or the decision that was made. I don't know if it was developer, if there were witnesses, or if it was in the back of a bar. But I'm curious what your thought is on if Hidden Springs has any, or heck, even Cartwright. I don't know if that group could rally after their own developer. It might have more influence than us to get something that would alleviate the rest of this conversation.
No, I appreciate your question. So first I'll make the caveat that I can't provide you legal advice. But what I can say is that the agreements that were originally negotiated were between Grossman Company, the original developer, and the developer of Hidden Springs. And those go way back to, 1997 is the real main agreement that started the negotiations on this. As it relates to what was papered then, it's papered. And so that agreement that we have an obligation to serve Cartwright Ranch is there, and also the notion that Cartwright Ranch would loan the $1.6 million and that it would be paid back to Grossman Company is also in writing. And so beyond that, we are restricted somewhat in how we navigate the ability to gain those funds that have been lost by the reimbursement of those connection and hookup fees.
So now what?
What was that?
I said, so now what?
I mean,
I appreciate the solution here. And again, I'm not trying to create argument or disruption or division. I have zero intention of that. I'm having a hard time accepting the state we're in.
Absolutely. And I think, if you look at what's been decided by the board, I mean, the board's done their absolute best to make sure that Cartwright Ranch customers' rates haven't doubled, right? And said, now we need to charge you one connection fee in order to reimburse the loan that's been provided by Grossman Companies, and we also need to charge a connection fee so that we can fund depreciation and reserve funds. So I think at this point, what needs to happen is that Cartwright Ranch customers really need to look at what repercussions do they have, what avenues do they have against Grossman Company.
Just so that we have kind of a gauge of just the people that are here tonight, how many people like option number one? Yeah. How many people like option number 3? Okay, thank you.
So as long as we were asking for legal advice, or no, just, sorry, just your thoughts on this. This 2/3 vote, I mean, it really hamstrings this community. Can it be challenged? I mean, could we take this forward to a judge and say, hey, this is something the developer saddled us with?
Yeah, so.
Can it change?
Yeah, so yes, we all could do that, right? We could lower the number that is necessary for quorum. We could do that as a community. How do you do that? You put it out for vote, and you got to get quorum to vote on it. Have we tried to do it? Yes, 2016, Lisa? Yeah, and we got nowhere.
I'm not talking about getting the quorum.
You have to have quorum to change quorum.
I'm talking about challenging the definition of a quorum that was put in place by a developer before any of us were here.
Yeah, we're saying the same things. What you're saying is challenging reducing the quorum.
I'm talking about taking it to court. I'm not talking about taking it to us.
Yeah, run for town council and sign up for that project. Yeah, seriously, I'm not even being facetious. If you want it, run for town council in 2023 and sign up to put that on your what you want to take on as a. I'm literally being honest with you. Could it be done? Sure. You know.
We actually wouldn't even have to take it to court. We would just have to get 2/3 of the community to participate, and the majority of that 2/3 to be for lowering the quorum to the nonprofit corporate code, whatever that is. We could lower it to that level.
Yeah, and what is, Lisa, you told me the other day what Cartwright Ranch's HOA quorum is?
Oh, I think yours is only like 30%.
I think ours is 30, and then if we can't get it, it drops to 15%.
Yeah, you actually, yours is good.
Yeah.
I would like to mirror ours after
Thank God.
yours. So yeah, it's doable. It just takes, we just have to get 2/3 of the community to participate in the voting.
And we did try to do that in, I'm sorry, Lisa, 16?
Yes.
Yeah, and it went nowhere, so.
My only question was, who do we contact to get a copy of this Grossman contract so that we can take a look at it? And then, yeah, and I just wanted to get your business card.
If you would like a copy of the facility sharing agreement, you can email my office. You can email me, that's fine.
Thank you. That would include that reimbursement vehicle, because I'm still confused about how that works.
Yes, that's in there.
Okay, thank you.
And Cartwright Ranch homeowners, you need to be looking at this dude for your liaison, so I recommend you get his name. What else?
So at our town hall, we asked about the water hookup because your letter came out, and I did a lot of homework, and I got your budgets, and I saw that, and I asked the question, and the way they explained it is they only paid $2,000, and they alluded the fact that they got $2,000 back on the hookup, and that's on the record because they were taking notes. So, you know that.
Yeah, we're not gonna.
I know, but just so you know, that's what
we're not stirring a pot there. So
that's what they told
truth
all of us.
All the truth and nothing but the truth.
Right. They just told us it was a 2001 time hookup, and that was it, basically. So you know, there's a lot of confusion on that. It's just so you know.
You've got our documents. Feel free. Yep.
Okay, I think we'll wrap it up because we have a lot of people that want to go home. So thank you, everyone, for coming. You can always email hsta@hiddensprings.com if you think of questions at a later time.